Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Saka. I'm based in San Francisco, US, and I'm so glad to be here today, share my experiences with you. And probably you hear a lot about AI and the recent advancement with ChatGPT introduction. So there are lots of stuff going on, and all these companies, government with regulations trying to catch up and understand the impact on the workforce. So in this presentation, I'm going to highlight few challenges related when you are making the AI in production. One thing, the accuracy, it was always the case for issue for AI. So enterprises still getting challenged to adapt using this technology. That being said, I'm Sako, working as a platform engineer at a company called Gladly, which is a CX platform for retail space. And our today's topic is how we can make AI production ready. So let's go to our agenda. So a few use cases I'm gonna mention, and then we're gonna look a bit about the background of LLMs. It's LLM, it stands for large language model. The one came from the OpenAI was ChatGPT, but then Facebook also introduced the Llama, it's called. We will briefly look at that. And then we will look in general to the AI landscape provided by SNCF. So SNCF is Cloud Native Cloud Foundation. So they support all these open source projects. It's similar to Apache Foundation. In that way, they're behind the Kubernetes and other amazing big community-driven projects to make sure that the power is distributed or nobody has really biggest impact on this open source community and project. And then 5 pillars, which is probably from the last presentation, we will just briefly highlight what does it mean in AI infrastructure when we add more tooling and then a bit more safety AI. And then we're gonna wrap it up and I will open a floor to your questions. I would love to get some more questions from you and how AI, what you see the AI in terms of your daily impact in your life or at work or in general in Africa region. That's really interesting because a lot of stuff going here in San Francisco, in Bay Area, uh, because a lot of events happening. So from education perspective, you can go meet people, talk, discuss, and I'm not sure. So I would love to also understand how it's going in other parts of the world and are the people finding enough educative things either online or in person, coming and discussing and dating or generating new ideas or that kind of things. So quote of the session is the generative AI world. It works on my machine. It's like self-driving car in your garage. And when we go out in San Francisco, we can also see a lot of self-driving cars without the drivers. And but that being said, running the AI in your machine or local doesn't mean that it will run in scale and you can put it in front of your customer, especially if you are in big scale and as enterprise. So that's what we are going today. So let's begin. So again, the goal of this presentation to go over some of the aspects, how to make the large language models running in your, not just your local laptop, not in the somebody's cloud, but make it run in your infrastructure. That's a key goal. And what are the aspects we should look for? Or what are the tools, some of the tools you have to be familiar with? So in general, bringing large language model running in your local, it requires a lot of tooling, which is bringing the complexity and associated with the risk itself. So do you need actually all this tooling or do you need all these new flows introduced into your architecture? Maybe yes, maybe not. It depends. Once you have a clear understanding on the foundation of AI, that will be much easier for you to evaluate all the tooling and pick the ones you actually needed. So this diagram just to show you that just bringing any AI tool, it's just coming with its own cost. So just be much more careful, especially in enterprise, when you have a lot of customer data and your infrastructure cost basically also will go high, especially if you're running on cloud, let's say, and it will be just unpredictable in terms of cost, security, and other aspects. So a few use cases. So the one I brought it up, this is running. So we will have more tooling there, Llama GPT. If you can just bring it up in your local. So new Max M2 chips probably is better if you are trying to run in your local, or any free credits you can take from the uh, from the Google or any other cloud providers. Just bringing Kubernetes cluster and running the containerized version of these llamas would be good enough. So this is one of the projects that you can just go start playing with. So the second piece is Ray tool. I want to just briefly mention. You can also run it in your local. So what it does, in a way, when you want to take your any data, clean it up, and then train it, and once you train it and you want to deploy and run it, this Ray tool is also open source, gonna help you productionize your basically ML workflow. So ChatGPT behind the infrastructure behind of the ChatGPT also using this tool, and the company behind Ray is Anyscale. It's an amazing project, and one of the co-founders also was professor at Berkeley and started also Databricks. So amazing. With his two interns, they started this project, and if you would like to get some hands-on with one of the great tools you should be familiar with, and they have a lot of getting started guides and tutorials. So I'm just trying to cover some of the open source projects that you can go check out. Obviously, we are not gonna cover everything in this presentation, but just to give you some highlights that you can go after and play with. So there are, again, a lot of use cases. One of the things probably you should know is about semantic search. So we learned previously there was keyword searching when you're writing basically a few keywords in the Google, and it will find basically the website containing that was. Yeah, this is a keyword full text search, full text based search. But with AI advancements, what happens, like, you can also look for the things you are looking for based on the meaning of the words. That's what's called semantic search. So I just want to make sure you understand the difference between keyword search and semantic search. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast or normal? Just want to make sure. All good? Okay. Just feel free anytime if you have any question, stop me, or you can also ask later. Both are fine for me. So another things we see a lot of use cases is the text summarization, where you see when you are writing email or you have a bunch of text and you are just copy pasting in ChatGPT and it will do summarize nice. So this is helping a lot of these kind of manual tasks. So a bit about backgrounds of LLM. So one thing before jumping to Llama's background would be nice to understand the prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is an emerging term because what happened with introduction with ChatGPT and LLMs, it made it easier the adoption or interacting with this technology, but you needed to learn the behavior and to make it more efficiently what you are asking for and how you are asking for. So there are few things just to see. So the prompt engineer is the one who, let's say, engineer, but they are using the AI or like ChatGPT to write a code. Yeah, this is a prompt engineering. And basically, prompt, you are passing some text and asking something to do. Yeah, like, hey, here is email. Please summarize it for me. This is a prompt you are passing to, and you are giving the instruction in that term. And if you need some context, you're adding more text that they can include it when they do the response. So this is where we will talk later, tooling like LangChain and so forth, they come up. And the data, obviously, the input data and output that you can also ask, okay, I want the data to be in JSON, or I would like to please return. This is all you have to give as part of the instruction. So again, the tooling like LlamaIndex, LangChain, they are kind of wrapped on top of these large language models. And we will talk also a bit OpenAI with recent introduction. They introduce basically agents where you can search on the web and so forth. So they are pretty much moving so fast that it's really hard in the industry even catch with them. So that being said, prompt engineering, this is a new role, and whatever role you do, whatever engineering or non-engineering, how you can maximize and be more productive in what you do using the large language models. That's what it means. In general, large language models, the first version came is 1960s, and you can see the first version was called ELIZA. Just a bit of history just attached here. And what it does in general, large language models, you are training the data on top of the public, mostly data set, and it statistically tries to predict what will be next word, token, or character. And based on that, you will get some more reasonable response what you were looking for. Basically, trying to understand the meaning of the question you're asking and give you more relevant and accurate response in some level. But still, the accuracy is not still there, even so it can do the hallucination, where meaning that it may seem good to you, but it may not actually factual based or accurate. So it can make stuff out of it. So that's why that's the biggest still challenge in using AI and large language model, how to make sure that it will not create misleading or false information. And there are generally the metrics, and there are benchmarks they are looking for the safety, security, privacy, performance, and so forth. So one thing was happening, because it highly depends on the data you are training your model. That's where some of these, let's say if it's trained on the Western data, maybe this is not going to cover Africa region or any other Asian countries data, because purely there is not much data on the public. And secondly, even maybe gender related data it can miss, and it can do some return some unfair or biased information. So that's the still biggest challenge, and there are lots of tooling out there to benchmark or to evaluate all these large language models from Facebook, ChatGPT, and Google. Let's say they have their own also safeguarding engine, which is checking for the kind of moderation piece, making sure toxicity and bias and all these levels are within the limits. And when you can basically tune these parameters, but again, it will still be not perfect. So there's still research going a lot on this direction to make it more predictable. So let's look at Llama. Llama is kind of leaked to open source debates, and then Facebook continued to keep it as open source. And one of the things, one of the most successful in today's large language models, and as you can see, they train the data on the GitHub, Wikipedia, and so forth, all on a lot of public data. And this is a few tooling you saw on the right, Trivia, Hella. So they did their accuracy. evaluation, and what happens according to Facebook Llama, it's even outperformed GPT-3 in some of these things. So, but accuracy you see in general ranges between most of the time like 60, 70, but it's not going beyond 80 or 90. So this is still early stage where we are today. And yeah, tokens is kind of, you can think about the word trillion word containing document. You can say like it was trained on top of it's like a huge library of books of book, lots of books, and they just trained it. So it's very knowledgeable, but when it comes to accuracy, it's still not there yet. That's what it is. So there is a platform called Hugging Face where all these open source models, and let's say from Google, from Facebook, they're hosting their models. So you can go download and play with them. And you can also upload the data, any public data you want, data set. And searching, there is a playground where you can go actually play with these. And in general, the models are pre-trained model. So let's say large language model are pre-trained. And then you can do the fine-tuning on top of these models. And fine-tuning meaning you will provide your data, kind of key value pair of the word. Hey, here is the request, here is the response, and you can train after the model. This is more high performance in compare, which we'll mention later. Also, the LangChain, let's say, you are using the context window to give some context, attach some context, and then asking the question. So this is a bit slower, and you are limited with the context window you can have. They are increasing. There are research going and increased a lot, yeah. But still, it's not enough if you have a large corpus of data and you would like to it automatically grab the context out of this private data and give you a more reasonable response. So this is not there yet. That being said. So here is mentioned a letter AI language model evaluation, and this is just pretty much framework, and it's doing just you can say hello Swagger model trustful QA, challenging that to evaluate the performance of these large language models. So, and one of the new recent terms you can see retrieval augmented generation, which is again what happened. These large language models were missing the context that or the private data you didn't want it to fine tune, let's say, and you wanted to have a kind of uh, the hybrid approach where you can provide or share with large language models the piece of information that would be relevant to for your questions you're asking. And the vector databases are the recent term, and I will ask a question. Have you heard about the vector databases? Is it something new for you? Okay, awesome. So I will try to cover a bit basics. What happens like the embeddings in the AI world? What happens? Let's say you have a text document, there's a lot of word on it, and if you want to turn it, so there is a way that the tools and libraries you will use these text of documents. Think about it, just sentences, yeah, like the text document. You will take it, and embeddings will be then it will translate them to the numbers, and then whole text chunk of text gonna be in a matrix format. Okay, so that being said, if you have a big text document with using some Llama index and other libraries, you will divide this into the chunks of the text, and then each chunk will be as a matrix, and they will be stored in the vector database. In compare with the traditional way we were storing them in database like, I don't know, Oracle, Postgres, and so forth, where we were actually storing the raw data. Instead, in vector database, we are going to store the number representation of the data. Again, this is reversible, meaning you can take that representation and you can 90+% of the time you can restore the raw data. So it's not encryption or something. It's not one way only. So you still need traditional security to store this number representation of data. And we will briefly touch about the vector store. So vector store, once you have these matrices where you're going to store, and then using that piece, this will enable you to do the semantic search. And next time when you have a request, you can search in the vector database, and based on similarity, based on the meaning similarity, you will be able to get more closer response. And then using that, you can go and send query to the large language model with the context provided to get more accurate information. So that being said, this semantic search and retrieval allows for training the data on top of the pre-trained data to use instruction-based context-aware queries, basically more accuracy. So that's what's called retrieval augmented generation, using basically enabling you to use the semantic search with your private data and with a large language model which trained on public data. So that kind of hybrid approach. And again, if you have any question, please feel free to stop me. So here is a lot, and it's a bit advanced. I'm not going to stop here much, but once there is a term called RAG stack, there are lots of best practices around that, how to make it scalable, how latency, because what happens when you are building this RAG stack, the challenge is, will it get the correct chunk of data? And then if the data becomes stale, how it's going to happen? Or in general, if you have a bunch of documents, how this is going to play out. So, and let's say if you have a new data coming, how you're going to update the one you already have in the vector database. So there are still lots of open questions once you use that infrastructure. But again, it's a good start. You can go play and with the tooling and all these things. But if you want to, again, productionize it, it's probably still a bit early for that in terms of performance, scalability, accuracy, data life cycle in terms of like how you're gonna make sure that whatever data you are storing is up to date based on what you are asking for. And it's not just picking the right context, but it's also picking the most up-to-date data from the vector database. So in general, there are 3 directions for the vector databases, and I put in all of them the links so you can go and check after. One is obviously open source one. So there are a couple new ones, Wave, Vespa, and I know the folks also working on the Qdrant behind. So most of them come with open source, and they have also their own cloud version where Pinecone, let's say, have only the SaaS version of it. So you can go and play, but there is certain limits, 1 GB or something storage, and after that you have to basically pay, or you can just use the open source version. There are some libraries also when you do demo, all these things, Chroma and so forth, Chroma and Files, that's what you see mentioned. So they're good for prototyping. They're good for you develop and demo just to get sense of it. But once you feel comfortable, you will need to pick either open source one, or you can see OLTP extensions, which is pgvector, or it's also added on OpenSearch and some of the other all of the existing traditional databases, but it's not really clear if later on which one gonna be the winner between two. Is it gonna be the one new come out just purpose-built vector databases or traditional databases supporting to store your raw data plus your embeddings? So this is still not clear. And yeah, this is from A16Z. As you can see, there are lots of tooling added in that infrastructure. And again, this is still early stage, and we expect more tooling to be added. That being said, without the basics, without the fundamentals of AI infrastructure, you will be lost. And I will definitely recommend to go and start with the basics. And once you have the basics, just start actually seeing in action them and run a few experiments and then slowly introduce new toolings. So, but there are things also not changing. Let's say still everything is using Kubernetes, everything is on top of it containerized, and to use or to benefit or build a product, you don't actually need the training and so forth. You can go use one of the existing open source large language models and deploy in your local infrastructure. You can, as you can see, you can use still caching Redis and so forth. And probably if you want safeguarding around it, you may need some moderation just to make sure that you are not leaking any data or some prompt injecting in security term that they are not basically violating data privacy rules you have in your company. So a bit about the AI, how we are doing this time. Okay. A bit about the AI landscape. I just put it from the Linux Foundation. I love Cloud Native Cloud Foundation. And if you want to just to see in the space, what are the tooling over there? Again, the private, there's lots of tooling coming, and I will not really recommend you start with, because at least in open source, you can based on number of stars, based on number of pull requests and so forth, the community around it, you can sense how well the product is maintained or the kind of success valuation of the product. So I will say start with the SNCF AI landscape and just look at some of the tooling. If they have any nice tutorials, go and play. And yeah, and then once you feel comfortable, you can look for alternates and just do some pros cons analysis and just go with the one that makes more sense. Again, there is no right or wrong. It's just hugely depends on the cost piece or your use case you are trying to do and other things. So, but it's a good start from the Linux Foundation landscape. So they have also for the security, it's still traditional. You can see a lot of tooling would be applied also, because again, it's the infrastructure piece, Kubernetes or container orchestration and other pieces are not really changing. AI is just another application running in your cluster or environment, and obviously we will see more and more advancement on top of it. It's going to be kind of the base, and then we will see more things coming up, but still early stage. So it means all this tooling is there, and but we can still see more smarter applications in terms of right now you're doing logging and it's just throwing some dumb errors and so forth. But more and more we're going to see application where self-healing, they won't just throw error, they will try to fix themselves. So this is one of the more advancement things we're going to see, like application are become more smarter, and they basically gonna require less and less time to maintain them once you run them. So, and Ray, this is he already mentioned. So Ray has a main component. Just briefly, so Ray is as a cluster, it's containerized running on the Kubernetes, and you can have the task. You can still run the task without the Ray. What Ray is doing, you will be able to do it faster, basically. Let's say if you need a text document, load, parse it, and then create embedding out of it, sure, you can do it locally with the libraries and so forth. But using Ray, you can do it in parallel concurrently, and then you'll basically get more faster response. And this is obviously the key for the real-time application in enterprises, because if they want to do more real-time response to the customer and clients, they need to fit within 200 millisecond response time, which is challenging, and tools like Ray can help with that things. So, and Ray has a main components. Again, this is more reference. You should go after check if it's something that you're in your interest. So data training piece, tuning, and then serving piece. That's a key component. So basically, you can from the scratch, this tool can help you to take your data, train it, create your own model, and serve it and deploy basically in the production. So the story behind is that the interns, the PhD interns at the Berkeley lab, and they wanted to test their models, and they realized there wasn't actually any tools or frameworks to make it easier. So they were spending a lot of time to debug and do custom scripting and so forth to create the ML ops workflow. So that's how it created. AutoGPT, probably you have seen, and with the recent OpenAI introduction, they actually moving on that direction where everybody will be able to create their own agent and using large language models to do things, and there will be a marketplace for all these agents. But one of the projects and fastest growing in terms of stars was AutoGPT. What it happens, the use case is very simple, yeah. How about let's say you have a question, yeah. I would like, with my family, these two kids, go for a vacation to a place where they have a nice vegan restaurant where I know the weather is certain way, it's closer to the beach, and it's nearby hotel. Do it. And what's gonna do, it's gonna divide it to the subtask, and it will create the list of actions you need to do. Oh, hey, this is a place what you ask for. Here is these days the flight tickets for your family members, and here is the hotel you need to book, and all this stuff. And then once you confirm, it will go actually do it then. So the way it's gonna be more, think about your personal assistant, where before you were, for each one, were searching yourself in a Google search or any other searches, and you were doing basically all this manual work yourself. But with large language model, one of the benefits or advancement that you can automate all these flow. So again, feel free to go to check out, but it's what they mentioned. It's not production ready, which is meaning you can play in your local, but if you have a startup or any company, don't try to propose it because it's not production ready. So your customers won't like it. Don't do it. Any questions so far? Emmanuel, probably I should ask you, is it clear? Because the topics, I'm trying to just cover from the basic, but let me know if where I should stop more and I can go more to details. But otherwise, I will keep moving. Okay. Assuming no response, you are good. So the private GPT, this is another open source project. So if you like OpenAI chat GPT kind of interface, feel free to go play with, which is you won't send your data to OpenAI or any other companies. Basically, you can run in your cluster and using Llama, and you will have a nice UI, and you can just develop. And especially if you're highly regulated industry, you definitely don't wanna take your data and send to other place, because when the regulation comes like GDPR and all others and data deletion and so forth, you will need to have a process at least for all these things. So, and then if you need more advancement, more customization, you can do it once you have hosted large language models. So this is another project, self-hosted GPT-like chatbot. Again, the same. So you can just pick any of them. The point is that you go take any Llama and so forth, making them and creating containers and all this stuff. But this project already did it. So you can just go, this is already basically UI and everything is built. So it's a good start, pretty much. And if you need something more, you can add on top of them, or you can go and create from scratch. So, but it's good giving you the sense of what it means running the hosted large language models in your local cluster or in the cloud. So briefly mentioning LangChain. So LangChain, what was happening, you had a private data, and what you were doing, taking that and basically attaching to your request before sending to large language model, and then getting more accurate information. Yeah, like it's like language chaining. So and Llama Index, it's similar, but this is in comparison with LangChain, it's more sitting on taking the data, indexing, and creating embedding and storing in your vector database. This is where this is mostly focusing on. Pulling the data from the different sources, indexing them, embedding, and storing in the vector database. So again, another project, if you are playing in the space, you can check out. So I also included the teleport, actually, because this was all I had a couple of weeks back, my talk at Teleport conference, and Teleport is one of the tool that I wanted also mention here, because all these new tooling, they are not coming with the security things, security features, where it may not be safe, or it's not safe to go basically expose them to the internet and so forth. So that's where tools like Teleport will be huge help. You can put, if they don't have login and so forth, you can use the teleport, and all these tooling can be behind the walls basically, and authentication and so forth. If they're missing, would be you can use teleport to authenticate these tools. So, and especially if you're at the early stage, you don't, let's say you want to go to market fast and you're challenged, you're blocked on some of these things. So definitely check that out. So we are going to briefly mention 5 pillars of well-architected infrastructure. Again, this is pretty much from my last talk. It's not much change. Like in the past year, my experience working on this space, this is the question is still the same. How, but probably the one of the key things happened, the cost of infrastructure increased a lot in terms of AI is compute intensive if you train your model and so forth. Second, even if you don't train, but then if you use OpenAI, all this stuff, so now the more features you implement, more you critical depend on these APIs, basically, still your cost is going high. So, and we don't, it's not something on your control, because OpenAI can anytime also increase the prices, excuse me. So reliability, performance obviously still there. The key challenge, what I mentioned earlier, like if you have more private data and you're going with instructional based tuning, which you will be challenged because of the data size plus the data data freshness, I would call it. And in terms of security, we mentioned a lot of new tooling, meaning all of them, they're on the race. They're not really prioritizing security per se. Obviously, some they do, but some they don't. So as you using or bringing into your infrastructure, you have to make sure you do your due diligence. Just go through at least the basics of the checklist of the security tooling before moving to the production. So, and the process more or less haven't changed yet in terms of CI/CD workflow, the first one. But we may see some of these tooling also change. They will be more powered AI, with AI. So because what happened, we have in infrastructure lots of tooling, and they start slowly having integrated with large language models, but it's not efficient because all these tooling cannot talk to large language models independently. And that's where Cloudflare introduced AI Gateway, where you may end up all of them talking to a single endpoint, and then from there you can do more reporting, analytical things, more efficient routing to, if you have, let's say, multiple large language models, you want to route based on the request and look at the request first, or you want to, before sending to large language model, to filter them and make sure there is no any data or PII, personal identifiable information, before you send them outside, or you do some data masking or anonymization in place and then send. So this is still emerging, all this workflow. And for now, we go with what we have, which just haven't changed much with the introduction of AI. So let's talk a bit the development lifecycle. This is what I mentioned earlier. It really didn't change. When you start with your application, you are developing, and then you are packaging your application, and then you are deploying in the infrastructure, and then operation side of it, you are maintaining that in place. So, and then in general, for the application in the environment, it has a storage piece, compute piece, which is storage still will be increased in terms of you will have a lot of data. You have now raw data, plus you will need still to store the, let's say, number representation embeddings of the data, and then this is still gonna, your storage costing will increase, but in compare with compute, it's much cheaper. And considering you can also over time delete it, but the compute piece price probably still gonna be your biggest cost when moving in the direction of AI. So let's spend the last 10 minutes maybe talk about safety. A lot of regulation, all these things happening in the space, and just a brief highlight. And OpenAI, they made it clear that they are not using your data to train their models, meaning when you are copy pasting, interacting with OpenAI, that whatever data you are sending, this is data is not going to be to make the model better. Yeah, like so. And then they will, whatever data you have after 30 days, they are going to delete. And so in a way, safe, but again, it's not under your control, so you still have to do your own due diligence, and if that's the right approach, right thing to do it, but still avoid as much to not send any PII or any IP of your company, of your own personal data, because again, this is, once you send it, it's over on the internet and you don't know. So just, it's a good hygiene to have some security basics in mind when working with AI tooling. So this is what we have more think about it in, if you apply in AI space, more security controls. And we are still in early stage. but there is high risk in that front. And once you have the high risk, there will be the high cost with that. That being said, we are still in the early stage with AI introduction, all this stuff. Maybe you will be fine for another year, but then once adversary side, once they improve their tooling and all this stuff, it may not be longer viral. So the best thing, whenever you see any security potential weaknesses, just try to fix them before going to production or before waiting somebody to advance the techniques and come after you. So this is because once you have pretty much you are putting the company on the table, and coming back would be more disastrous than to do some proactive steps, take some proactive steps. So responsible AI frameworks. Now, probably you hear a lot, all these big companies, all these governments talking about safety AI, responsible AI, because the things mentioned earlier, large language model trained on the data, but then where this data coming from? Is there enough data to make sure there is no bias and so forth? This is still one of few hardest challenges. And one of the approaches would be synthesize the data or create a new data set where all these things will be in place instead of just going and pulling the data from the internet. And then once you've pulled the data from internet, how we can know the trustness or accuracy, or are they factual based, and are they factually correct or whatever, and from which perspective? So think about the news, yeah, like once you see something on the news, that's what they want you to see. It's not actually always the truth is there. So that's still the biggest challenge. And that's why all these companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, they're all working to make their models that more secure and more consider the privacy piece. And again, safety and fairness is in place, because the safety it's called, but then once you ask the questions, and depending on who is asking and so forth, they have some safeguarding in place, these large language models. But that's a kind of a big challenge when you're running this once hosted version of it. So these kind of things you have to do it yourself, which is again adding another tooling and constantly maintain these things. So again, this is one of the probably advantages when you use some API or enterprise large language models versus the one you're running now. You have to all these pieces put together yourself. So it's from OWASP. They have for LLM specifically. OWASP is publishing basically top 10 most hacked or most security vulnerabilities or techniques, and they come up with specific for LLMs, and they have for ML, machine learning. So I would recommend you to go over some of them. I mentioned from my also previous talk that access control, they recommend more access control, which I was talking earlier, teleport, role-based access, who is accessing what tooling. Because in industry, the key challenge is to understand who has access to what. So if you have an incident, the best or more efficient or more ideal scenario is in 54 minutes, you understand who has access to where. But it's not the case in most of the industries. That being said, you have to up-level the game around them. It's not about the hacks or security, all these things. Incidents won't happen, but are you ready to mitigate them in timely manner when they happen? So that being said, you have to make sure whatever tooling is introducing, they have an audit around them. They have granular access, meaning not everybody have access to everything, but whoever need what access they need to. So And more automation will help, obviously, save the engineering cost. At the same time, it will help you once you save it and do more advanced workflows, meaning that you can have multiple copies of the data and so forth in case you have a malware or ransomware that you will have another copy of the data and so forth. That way you won't need to go and pay to adversaries for that. So and the audit obviously is a key part. Once happened, you can go back and check in the history after you mitigated what happened, how happened, and what you need to do, because they may still be sitting in your infrastructure and you may not be aware of it. So, and this is again from my Tailbird presentation, just briefly touching that piece, the access control we talked, data protection, data privacy, data. There are regulations around that in GDPR, and you can go over that piece, and zero trust and secretless is coming. So one thing, biggest challenge with LLMs, a lot of time, like if you're debugging code, you may accidentally or whatever, I include the API token or whatever. So the best thing to do, just go rotate whatever you send to security or related to your privacy data. If you can purge this data or if you can rotate secrets and so forth, that's recommended. So, and oops, I know we are a bit over time. Should we continue, Emmanuel, or do you think I can open the floor for the questions?
I mean, you can round up and then we'll see how we go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So pretty much from traditional develop, distribute, deploy, runtime, not much really changed from AI perspective. Everything is just more or less same. This is just another tooling with a different code running on them. You can think about it, and they still have API and so forth. But I expect next year we will have more cooler or no code solutions where you won't actually need to play with the code itself. So it's just a matter of time. But for now, the steps wise still not change. You develop the software and then you package and you run it somewhere and you maintain it. So, and I just attached some security in development, what you need to do briefly, like still using the GitHub for the code base, and then Hugging Face is similar to the storing the model. So we may see more advancement on that direction as well, where training models and deploying the models and so forth will be more easier and more faster, more cheaper. And we will see basically multi-purpose model, because again, the data set you are training the model will help with the accuracy piece. That being said, we will have large language models, let's say for the gym exercises, for university, for education piece, or for the car industry. So we will see more and more specific build models, because to solve or increase the accuracy level. So that's kind of my prediction in that front. Otherwise, it's just security and development. There are a few steps you need to do. Then in the packaging, I included some of these things to do static analysis, dynamic analysis, and all stuff. This is still things haven't changed when you're also distributing the packages and so forth. But I expect these next year when we talk, it's going to be drastically changed, and all this tooling will have AI piece on them. Right now, they're still traditional piece, but AI can empower them to be more self-healing, self-aware, self-automated, more intelligent. Basically, before there was Internet of Things, which was we were adding software on every hardware we had for fridge and so forth. Now we are adding more intelligence on software itself, making you will be able to talk to your fridge and whatever, and it will be able to make decisions considering all the instruction initially you gave to them. Okay, it's like basically, or you will have general purpose built robots in your house where you will ask to make a coffee for you or go the cleaning and so forth. Because right now we had only Hoover and so forth, more automated that they do it, but then we will have the more robots, which is more general purpose built and will be like huge help in terms of personal assistant and making a call for you, to send email, to cook and so forth. Basically, it's exciting. At the same time, it's challenging or a bit worried because these technologies enable that, and we don't know exactly the impact in the workforce. And are the people getting upskilled fast enough to catch up with this wave of the technology? So this is still open. That's why um, uh, the from the US government there was executive order came to do some regulation around them, like to make sure this is not consolidated power in the bigger corporations, but everybody has fair access and so forth. But again, this is executive order. We may see more legislation and so forth around AI and technology from Europe, from US, and I will expect from other countries. And one of the key challenges is that one of the open questions, do we want to have a regulation for AI for per country, or we should have one base and then each country have their own version? Because otherwise it's going to be too much. Like think about it as a company, if you want to enter any market, you will need to go through different set of the regulations for AI. And it's pretty much will be so much hassle to go through, so much resources you will need. And you will not be able to basically have a model or AI technology that will be able to generic enough to cover all these regulation or be compliant with them. So this is again still open. I expect next year, hopefully I can come up and tell you more, but still today it's in the research or early stage for that. So, and platform integration, I won't touch for that. I think I just put it here, some good white papers. Again, I love cloud native tooling and open source. That's where I think I attached. And my name is Sako. Again, it was a pleasure to talk to you last year, this year. Thanks, my friend Manuel and the team organizing it. It was a pleasure. And I want to open the floor to questions if you have any. If not, please add me on LinkedIn. I would like to follow up with you and help whatever you do with this technology or in general. Any help I can help you guys. Thanks so much, Emmanuel. I am done speaking. Thank you. Any questions? Was it useful? Was it helpful? Any feedbacks? Oh, thank you, Yao. Appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed. And feel free to add me on LinkedIn and send me a message if you need a copy of the slide. And I will probably also do it public. So, but again, if you need, just ping me, remind me, I will be happy to send it to you over. So, and again, if you have more questions and so forth, feel free. That's a really good question, Emmanuel. Everybody is asking this question. Even we are I'm in the center of these things happening, and nobody really understand what's going to happen. So the predictions, all of them going to be wrong. But what I can tell you, what I see, what I know, that we have already autonomous driving on the streets, which meaning that this, if become a multi-billion, multi-trillion industry, we won't have it will solve the parking problem. We won't have the drivers and so on. So it's really moving fast, but the thing is, it's also costly. That's what it slows down. The technology is there, it works, but it's higher cost. So it may take for a while where people can get more opportunity on upskill. And one of the thing is keep learning, I would say. And they yes, and AI use AI as a see AI as a tool, to do more stuff. So basically, before you were, let's say, doing 100 lines of code, now with AI, you can do 200 lines or whatever you were doing. So the entrepreneurship can help, because even AI it's gonna create their own challenge. Like the challenges now, some of these things, these proposals coming, UBI, universal basic income, that only stuff, but it's still not clear how this is gonna play out. The most right strategy, I would say, prioritize entrepreneurship skills, people skills, like more collaboration, relational skills, and find the problems, bigger problems, and use AI to solve them. Let's say climate and all this stuff. So AI cannot just alone solve. Need people more advanced use cases we will start working on. So I have a friend who's doing quantum compute engineering, like master degree on that. Go with that. I have another friend who is doing medical surgery degree, where he can go and do the surgery on the space travel. So it's become more and more norm to hear these kind of new things happening. And I would say just pick whatever is there in the research, and just reading research papers and so forth would help you to get these kind of ideas, and having the entrepreneurship skills on the side will help you to apply them and maybe create a potential company or solve the problem. So the number of problems we see today with AI is not gonna solve over the night. There will be more problems, and once we solve some of the problems, they will unblock or create new problems. Then we will need to go jump to solve. So I don't see it as a ending game where with AI or whatever, everything is solved. But yes, it may solve the existing problems, but it will also create or unblock the next level of sub problems, or we have the ones more advanced, then we will need to jump and work on them. So basically, I would say just stay curious, keep learning, and watch what you are passionate for, and jump to it, and find a way to using AI and collaboration solve them. I know it was a bit long answer, it was a bit more visionary, and hope it was clear. Thank you.
Yes, I mean the answer was very helpful. Thank you. The baseline is keep learning. Yeah. So I had just
Exactly.
one last question. I think
Sure.
you mentioned something about prompt engineering or
Yeah.
something like that. Could you maybe touch a bit on that, and then maybe someone who probably be looking forward to joining a field like that, or getting into a field like that, or maybe generally in AI, what will be some of the steps that the person could look out for?
Yeah, definitely. So the prompt engineering, in a way, think about it, it's one of the skills, whatever you do. Yeah. If you're a DevOps engineer, how you can, because large language model, if you go to ChatGPT and all these things, you are asking the queries, how you can be more smarter. Sometimes it's not a limitation of large language model, but how we clearly ask the question, how we clearly write the instructions, and getting more accurate response. So that's where prompt engineering comes. It's a skill that you can play with the tuning piece. There is Andrew Ng is a nice course on that, prompt engineering. I will definitely recommend, and I can also find and send you guys later. So that being said, prompt engineering is more frequently used, tested, what it is good at, what's not good at, okay? And whatever information you get, go check for accuracy, for bias, and all these different things. It's basically will come with experience, and there are some guidance or some things like some instructional documents or playbooks that you can go find and read it. But the best things will come with playing with it. For example, if you pay ChatGPT Premium, you can generate image. So one thing you can do, you can go play generating image and then asking, hey, now fix that, fix that. Like it's like more interaction based, basically. So more you are interacting in daily basis, whatever task you get, before jumping to Google search, go use ChatGPT or any large language model. And once you get that sense, you can still go to Google search and do the fact checking and so forth. But that's where prompt engineering starts. So it's not really completely something different, but whatever you do to day to day, just go first to large language models and then do the traditional way of solving the problem you have. So, and this is, you will still need the core primary skills, which is, let's say it's a platform or security or full stack or whatever, but then using AI, it will make you more productive. That's where being good at prompt engineering will help you to output more, basically, things than before.
All right, thanks so much. I don't know if anyone else has some additional questions. If not, we'll probably call it a day. Definitely, we'll be looking forward to having Sako again, maybe sometime in the future, maybe next year, and all of that, to just see what you